Hello, you're watching Tell It Like It Is with public officials, and my name is Kathy Benuck. And here we are, almost midway through February, and by the time you see this, Valentine's Day will be over, but that's okay. Happy Valentine's anyway. Hope you had a good one. Hope you got your sweetie to treat you well. I have a very special guest here today, and you know, some of you folks out there might be surprised. In fact, there might even be a couple people tumble out of the chair, because my guest tonight and I have, I guess you could say, exchanged a few spirited words in the past few months, and maybe gotten a little public tussle or two. But, you know, I mean, that's the way it is in politics. Everybody doesn't always agree. Things get spirited, and that's what we love about politics. We can all kind of vent out what we think and feel, and hopefully still be friends. So anyway, as I said, my special guest is none other than Bedford City Town Council member Jim Scanlon. Jim, I'm so glad to have you here today.
Pleasure, Kathy. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And as I said, I think there's probably a few people sitting there going, what? The two of them on the same set and there's no blood?
Well, as you said, it is Valentine's Day.
There you go. There you go. And we're both feeling mellow and sweet, right?
Right, absolutely.
But we're both mellow and sweet anyway on a day-to-day basis. Just people don't recognize it. Well, you know, I'm not going to, this is, as everybody can see, there's blank cards here. And anybody who watches my show knows I always have my little notes and, you know, mainly to keep myself on task, so to speak, so I don't start carrying on about something. And also so that I'll remember to ask questions that I think are good ones to ask and that people might enjoy hearing the answer to. But I left them all blank, believe it or not, because I figured this is going to be one of those conversations we'll kind of let it go where it goes. You know, and I think we'll have fun.
Good.
And, I mean, we're both, well, by your name people can tell. By my married name people can't. But we're both Irishmen. And, I mean, put two Irishmen together for longer than a minute, and they're good for at least 1 hour, if not 3 or 4. True?
Amen.
All right. So, I mean, between the two of us and storytelling and everything, this will be good. But I am told they will limit us to an hour.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I know. So somewhere toward the end of things, I'll sort of let you know when they'll expect us to wind down and not go overtime and throw off all the scheduling, you know, for the rest of the day when it is. Yeah. Well, everybody knows you're on the council, obviously. I mean, you're a well-recognized face in Bedford. You've been on the council over 3 years, and you're going to be seeking re-election. And if you obviously would like to talk about the council at some point, or your plans for the next term, because you are going to be re-elected, that's totally up to you. But, you know, I won't, like, specifically say, so what do you think about this, or anything like that. I mean, you can feel as free to talk as you want on that. But I thought it would be fun. And from my experience doing shows with other folks who are well-known by their profession or by their political office or whatever, people seem to enjoy hearing about the person and seeing the person, the personality, rather than the official face. So I thought it would be kind of fun to maybe talk about everything that happened before you got to Bedford. Because among other things, I know you were a teacher at one time, and I know you were in business and traveled all over the place. And am I right? Is it New Jersey or New York? You're native of New Jersey. So well, there's stories there all by themselves.
And New York City as well.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's go. Where do you want to start?
So that's good. We'll take some of the personal things. I mean, I'm a family man, married to my wife for 42 years, Judy.
Long-suffering woman, Jim.
Well, she has been on the
now, you know I'm teasing.
Well, she's been on the list of saints for many years, but in the last 3 years, she's moved up to probably the early stage of canonization, according to the opinion of many.
Yeah.
Judy and I have 3 girls, one in Colorado who we're going out to see tomorrow.
Yes.
For the next 12 days. She's giving birth on Saturday to her second daughter.
Oh, my goodness. They already know it's a girl.
They do, and she has a 4-year-old. And then I have 2 other daughters. I have Christine, who is a head of an HR activity for a software company in Boston.
Oh, good.
And she lives in Cambridge. Yep. And my daughter Lisa has 3 grandchildren. Well, they're our grandchildren. She has 3 boys.
Neat.
And the oldest is 10, and the youngest is about 4.
Good ages.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Now,
is she nearby or is she far away?
Oh, I'm sorry. She's in Littleton, Mass.
So another one nearby. Good.
And she's going to be watching the dogs, as is my daughter Christine.
Neat.
We have 2 dogs. So which I've trained, and she'll watch those while we're away in Colorado.
Well, that must give you some peace of mind, because I know I don't have dogs anymore, because the last one I had, finally went off to doggy heaven from old age. And only a couple times did I have to kennel any of the dogs. And I don't know who hated it more, the dog or me, even though they were nice kennels. Because I think they feel abandoned.
No, they do.
And when they're with a family member who they already know, they're much more happy.
They're wonderful pets. I mean, I've always had an affinity for the phrase, and I've tried to follow through on it, that says, "I wish I was the man my dog thinks I am."
Yeah.
That's a great turn of the, use of the words.
Dogs are great. I mean, no matter what kind of mood you're in and no matter what's going on, they are your best friend.
Unconditional love.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, we've lived over the years. I was born and brought up in Bedford-Stuyvesant in New York City. When Judy and I first got married and hooked up, we lived in Brooklyn Heights.
Really?
Which looks out in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
We lived there for 5 years. We then lived 25 years in New Jersey, and I traveled most of the world on high-tech sales responsibilities. But then we moved from New Jersey to Huntsville, Alabama.
That I did not know. Wow.
Judy loved it. I hated it.
Did you get a lot of commotion going down in the Deep South?
A lot of what?
Commotions going? I mean, sometimes they don't like us Yankees to begin with, but outspoken Yankees usually get a good reaction.
They had a difficult time with me. I was asked about that after being there for 3 years, and someone said, "Well, how did it finally work out for you and all the people that reported up to you?" And I responded with, "Well, from what I've heard, they've learned to adapt pretty well, because I didn't adapt." Anyway, we moved from Alabama to Fayetteville, New York. Took head of a software company up there in Syracuse. And then finally we moved to here in Bedford probably 10, 12 years ago.
Oh, my goodness. You've been all over the place.
Well, and I've traveled pretty much most of the world already on business.
Wow, that's neat.
Yep.
It's neat to have that experience behind you. I've never done as much traveling as I would have liked, so that's neat. Then
on a personal basis, I've driven a tank in the Army. I've flown from behind the lines in a two-man bubble helicopter with nothing between me and the ground when the helicopter would turn. I've gone sport parachute jumping, jumped out of helicopters to go heli-skiing in British Columbia. And pretty much enjoyed a very adventurous life with some of the different activities Judy and I have been into.
I guess. Now, you also had an adventure as a teacher somewhere in there, didn't you?
I left that out. I taught high school, and the grand salary for teaching high school and coaching the basketball team was $4,600 a year.
Wow.
I taught history, English, civics, geography, literature, and composition.
Oh, wow.
A long time ago for the
all those subjects.
Grand sum of $4,600.
Now, where was that? New York?
That was in New York City.
In New York City to boot?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Drove a cab in New York City during the summer before I got married. Drove it from 6 to 4 in the afternoon. And then I worked on live TV shows with NBC as a page.
No kidding.
Which is really an usher, but essentially I worked on...
Oh, that must have been fun, though. You must have met a lot of people in the course of being there.
Got a lot of Twinkies, because I worked the Howdy Doody show.
You are kidding.
No, ma'am, I am not.
Oh, my God. That was my dream to have gone on that show. It's Howdy Doody time.
I probably still know.
I remember that. When I was a kid, I wanted to go on that so bad. So bad, I can't even tell you. I never missed it.
Too bad we didn't know each other. I could have gotten you into the cut rate.
I never missed it. Princess Summer, Fall, Winter, Spring, Clarabelle, the whole game. Oh, my God, I loved it. And when I was a young kid, we were going to New York one time, a family trip. And we were stopping in New York and then going on to Washington. And my father had, been planning this, and it was the whole family going, grandparents and everything, because my uncle was being ordained a priest in Washington. So they figured, well, why don't we do New York first? It'd be great for the kids, and then Washington. Well, I mean, in those days, I guess they just figured. I mean, they had promised me for months. I'd wake my mother and father up every single morning. I'd jump in bed and I'd say, "Tell me about the trip." You know how kids are. You want to hear it over and over. And of course, part of the story was always, and we'll bring you to Howdy Doody so you can be in the peanut gallery. Remember the peanut gallery? And,
yes, I do.
Oh my God, that was like going to be the thrill of my life. Well, I mean, in those days, I think people didn't know that probably you had to write a letter a year in advance or something for your kid to be in the peanut gallery. But they didn't know that. So the big day came, and we all troop off to the studio, and I'm all excited, and we're in line to get in. And my father says to them, and my little girl's here to be in the peanut gallery on the Howdy Doody show. And of course, he was informed, well, no, that isn't going to happen. You don't have a ticket. One of the heartbreaks of my young life.
Oh, that's too bad.
I
really
know.
is.
I think they felt bad for me, though, because you know what they did? You know how they used to, and I mean, those days, God, we're aging ourselves, Jim. You know, I thought everybody did. I wanted everybody to think I was like not a day over 30, you know. Anyway, remember how when it was a big deal that they'd have a TV out in the lobby, and then as people would walk by, you could look up and see yourself, and how excited people would get to see themselves? Well, that's how they tried to pacify me, walking me back and forth in front of that, so I could go hi and make believe I was saying hi to everybody back home.
Well.
But I never got over not meeting Howdy Doody and Buffalo.
Well, one of the things that was great for me as a page for NBC in the late night shows was when young ladies were online outside. I'd say, hey, young lady, do you want to sit in the VIP section?
Oh, Jim.
And we had then the rest of the evening after the show
Now, did
go
you
off
ever have
the air.
nuns when you were in school?
Yeah, I did.
What would the good nuns have said about behavior like
Well, they
that,
were
I asked
convinced
you?
I was already going to hell to begin with. And I guess a great moment for me was I played nickel-dime poker under the stage during the Jack Parr show before they both came on.
Really?
With Jack Benny and Bob Hope together.
Seriously?
Yep,
Did you meet them? Did you get to meet them?
Oh, sure. We played nickel-dime poker together.
Oh, you played with them?
We played with them.
Oh, my gosh.
Because before Jack Parr got
So did you get their
around it-
autographs and all that?
No, not really. I mean,
You weren't that awestruck, huh? You were
no,
used to it
because
by then?
everybody was on the show week after week and night after night.
Oh, wow.
So as a page, you got to see all these people.
See, I never got to see much of him because I was too young, but that was my father's very favorite show. He loved the Jack Parr show.
Yeah, well, we got to remember, I'm 75, so most of these stories for anybody that's watching out there,
A lot of them
we'd be lucky if they know who Jack Parr or Bob Hope and Jack Benny are.
And kids would never know Howdy Doody. In fact, if they saw Howdy Doody today, they'd laugh at it. They wouldn't think it was at all good.
Well, we still have the Twinkies in the fridge after all these years. Anyway, that's the personal side of my background.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
funny.
See, people
We've done a
love
lot of
hearing some
different
of that
things.
stuff. But I mean, I would have guessed, even if I hadn't, and I didn't hear it from you. Somebody somewhere along the line told me that at one time you had been a teacher. But even if somebody had not told me that, and of course you saying that one of the things you taught was English, this would not surprise me because you love words. I mean,
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
you have a very big vocabulary, and you love words, and you love to use them. And that's an affinity that we share because that's always been, I mean, when I was a kid on my own, every night, you know, nobody told me to do this, but on my own every night I had a dictionary and I'd pick out the 5 hardest words and learn what they meant and how to spell them because
That's
I just loved
interesting.
words. So when I hear you, especially when you decide you're going to kind of carry on at that town council meeting, I'm like, yes, let's say. It's kind of like, you know, with Bill O'Reilly, how he ends his show at night always with a word. You know, that send people to their dictionaries. Well, it's kind of the same way when you're at the council. If you're kind of going on about something, you're going to throw out at least one will get, if nobody else, will get Jim and Dermody kind of like rattled.
Yeah,
or,
well, Bill and I went to the same school. Bill went to Fairfield University, Jesuit education.
Did you know each other though?
No, we did not. I was, I think, maybe 2 to 3 years earlier than Bill. So we had the Jesuits there. Actually, one little anecdote that people may find interesting, especially if you're a young person. One of the reasons that my vocabulary, and I think it's fairly well developed at this age in life, is because I stammered and stuttered my way through the early teen years.
Really?
And it had nothing to do with a shyness with young ladies. I simply stuttered and stammered, so I had to find alternate words to use. So most kids might ask you to pass the pepper and salt, and I just even did it again, saying pepper before salt. Usually it's pass the salt and pepper. As a kid, I couldn't say that, so I would ask to have the condiments passed to me, because I couldn't get the word salt and pass out in the same sentence.
Isn't it amazing how we adapt?
Yep.
You know? Do you know there's actually, and I won't say his name on the air because you know, it's his private business, and I don't think he told me when I was talking with him. on a television show, but he did tell me at some point. But we do have a legislator who does have a very severe problem, but never, ever would you know it. Because, I mean, he gives speeches all the time, he gives interviews all the time, and you don't even pick up on a piece of it. Because, again, he totally trained himself, you know, to just forge on ahead.
You pretty much have to do that.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's how you get to love language.
Well, that's how I got to use it. I just love the definition of language, the use of it. It's so precise and so exacting, and so demanding. If you're going to make a point, by God, make it clear. Make it emphatic.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I always, because I do watch the council meetings on TV. Now,
I know you do, Kathy.
I do. Although I will not swear that I see all of them, because sometimes if you guys get too quiet, I'll just doze right off and kind of wake up and go, I wonder what I missed.
Well, I think sometimes if we get too quiet, some of the councilors doze off.
Yeah, I've noticed a couple dozing a couple times. But then, you know, if I think I missed, if I saw the agenda that it looked like it was something interesting, well, then I'll go to the BCTV video on demand to see if I missed something really good, you know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
But, yeah, but I don't make it to too many of them in person because, frankly, it'd be kind of embarrassing to fall asleep right there in front of you, you know. Although one time I was there and I almost did. You know, that's where Jerry comes in handy. You know, you mentioned your wife. Yeah, he will. Yeah, seriously. You know, right here too, where I'll feel it, because I have been known to, if I lose interest or didn't sleep enough or whatever, to kind of.
It's always a good reason.
I almost did here once, because I had a guest who just was like a real long time explaining something, and I was having kind of one of those days, and I had been up real late the night before. And I kind of caught myself because, you know, I was just looking at him and listening. And every so often I'd go, and then I didn't. And I kind of caught myself and I thought, oh, God, I hope the camera didn't see that. And it didn't.
Well, good.
But Michael, my director, Michael Currier, saw it. Yeah.
I know Mike, great guy.
Yes, and he caught it.
So he can edit that out, I suppose.
Well, he did. I guess he didn't have to. Well, maybe he had to, and he just didn't tell me. I don't know. But I do know that I was having a tough time that day. But I won't have a tough time with you because we'll keep it going.
All right.
You know, yes. Look at how fast the time's going. The time is going fast. We've already, you know, covered some time here. So anyway, now you have an opinion on everything. Sort of.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, right. Anybody watching believe that for even 1 second? I don't think so. Like me, yeah, we don't, you know, we just kind of sit around and we don't have opinions, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right. Well, I told you I wouldn't, you know, try to pin you down on any opinions on council issues or anything. But I can say to you, so you've been on the council 3 years, and I don't know, what's your takeaway after 3 years? How does it differ from when you've, in fact, one of the things I want you to tell me that I did not know, but I think people will be interested in, is how you ever decided to run for council, because this was not something I had ever heard, but you told me the other day on the phone. And then maybe kind of swing into what you take on it now after 3 years. How different is it than what maybe you thought it was going to be?
Sure. I'm glad you asked it that way. Let me segue, perhaps just for a moment, beginning with the answer to the part of the question. I became interested in the council because I became interested in the concept of a unique dog park here in Bedford.
Yep.
And applied to the council to fill one of the slots they had on a council-generated committee, council-initiated committee for the study of the dog park. So prior to being on the council, I spent maybe a year and a half on the dog park committee. And the more experienced I became with how that information transposed itself back and forth to the council, I became interested in then moving on to the council itself. Made some inquiries. I actually spent 6 months probably going to council meetings and sitting in the audience and just listening to what transposed itself that night, learned more about council operations, the issues they dealt with. Then I talked to the council chairman.
Now, did you like it, or did you kind of think, whoa,
no,
this isn't so great, or what?
I thought it was very interesting, very intriguing. I hadn't realized that the town of Bedford, with all of the employees that it has, had this form of government, and that much of the development of the town of Bedford for the direction of the town came from the town council. And I very much wanted to be a part of that. I'm going to continue the answer because I'd like to move ultimately into a denouement of where I am on the council.
Okay.
And I'll try to be very brief about that. I became interested in the council, as I told you. Paul Goldberg, who was the head of the planning committee, was kind enough to interview me as a candidate maybe 3.5 years ago. I answered some questions on my personal background, but as you would expect, any council member, when interviewed, should probably answer such questions as your professional background, what did you do in professionally, or what do you do professionally that might qualify you for the role of town councilor. But beyond that, you know, the questions deal with your skill sets. What sorts of things do you do well? Communication being an example. Are you as good a listener as you are a speaker? And both are key elements of a successful town councilor. And then finally, the question is asked of a new prospective town councilor, what do you perceive to be the nature of you as a political animal? You know, and I have defined myself, as I think I told you on the phone, as a moderate, as a social moderate and a fiscal conservative. Now, those answered the questions about myself 3 years ago when it allowed the voters to make a decision whether to vote for me or not. But in the second 3 years, that's the election coming up in March, at least in my case, some things have changed that I think the people of Bedford absolutely should have an interest in and make some judgments about.
Okay.
So people hopefully understand what I discussed 3 years ago about my background. They either retained it or threw it away as irrelevant.
Well, it's a good chance to bring it back out again. This show.
Sure, I mean, we could do that as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things has changed is, I think 3 years ago when I ran for council, I wasn't wearing an eye patch. Yeah, yes, I was. I just started wearing it because I lost my left eye probably 6 years ago, and as the years went by, it atrophied, and it required the wearing of a patch. But the right eye was as good as anybody else's, maybe better. In fact, I knew it was very good. It was the secret of my success as I played sports, being right-handed. Anyway, my immune system, equally as aggressive on the inside as you would say I am on the outside, my immune system is extraordinarily aggressive. So it attacked my right eye. And for the last 6 years, we have waged a battle medically to preserve the sight in my right eye. After overcoming a stage 3 cancer situation in which we had to neutralize all the anti-immune drugs I was on, it grew more aggressive and it continued the attack on my eye. That's a long-winded way of telling the people of Bedford that for most of 2012 I had extremely limited vision, beginning last January with the retina separation. And as the year progressed, the vision did not return anywhere near what it had been prior to the retina separation. It went from maybe 50% vision in January to considerably less as the year advanced. I found alternative ways of handling my responsibilities, but now if you consider me as a qualified candidate still, it is with a handicap because my sight is now gone. I have nothing left in the right eye, perhaps 1 or 2% only, which allows me to see some shapes, but I am now probably going to be using a cane. No seeing eye dog, as you asked, but I am blind, and you would have to wonder, well, how the hell does a blind person become a town councilor? How do you discharge decisions and actions on my behalf as a citizen and do them adroitly and successfully? So I use a tape recorder. My wife, who, as I mentioned before, is near-term canonization, reads all of my emails to me except for the confidential emails. We have another way of handling those with the chair. She reads all the emails, and then I either dictate immediately the responses to those emails, or I do the research through phone calls, and then we'll dictate the responses. So email is handled that way, through a tape recorder. My participation in the council when there's a lot of data required, like a budget responsibility, is heated by memorizing the areas of responsibility that I have by sitting down with Crystal Dion. And we go over all of the numbers associated with my areas of responsibility, which this year is information technology, which would be personnel, which would be finance, and one or two other areas. And as we approach the town meeting in March, I have all of those numbers buried deep inside. I know them backwards and forwards because after we taped them, I played those tapes over and over again. And they all sit inside my head to be used in answer to any questions that come up at those sessions. So I don't feel that, I mean, I've lost my sight and I don't feel handicapped, but I absolutely believe that every citizen in Bedford has a right to know that. Parenthetically, I would add, I don't know if we're ever going to see any young kids out there, but this would be a pretty good time to tell you that obstacles in life are what you see when you take your eyes off the objective. So I've dealt with cancer, I've dealt with blindness, and I've dealt with some broken vertebrae because I'm 75 and I've gotten old, but I have no intention of not staying in the main fray, not having things in life that I find of interest and enjoyment. And if you get to know Kathy as well, you will find that she too is every bit as prodigious a fighter as I would like to think that I am. We all face obstacles in life, but it's simply for you younger people a matter of how you decide to handle them. You can give in to them, or you can overcome them. And you see that every day in the lives of many, many other people. I think I've been very lucky in resilience, in fortitude, in the willingness to fight and overcome these issues. I think I would do still a continuingly good job as a town councilor, just as Kathy has fought her issues and continues to do an outstanding job in bringing information to Bedford. Anyway, I promised you a long-winded answer, and I think that's about it.
Well, I think it was a good answer. And,
Thank you.
You know, you very eloquently spoke to the issue. And I said to the issue when I don't think it's an issue to most people, because it has not interfered with your ability to be at council meetings, to be up on the issues, to form your opinions, to give legitimate votes, and so on. And quite frankly, that's all people need to worry about. You know, what's in your head is in your head. And whether or not you can see a piece of paper clearly or not really isn't the issue, because you don't have to read the paper to know what's in the paper, quite frankly.
Thank you.
So I think that, you know, and I know why you wanted to do that, because you did want to be very honest to people and not have people asking questions or speculating or anything. But I can't imagine that any Bedford resident could say, or should say, or would say, that would interfere with you in the performance of your duties, because it clearly has not, and it won't in the future.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't say it to be flattering. I say it because it's the truth. You know, and I know that it's been something very hard for you to face, and you've put, you know, a great deal of painful thought into it and such, but you faced it. You faced it, and you conquered what you had to conquer, and you'll keep on conquering it. And that's what it's about.
I believe that too.
That's what it's about.
Anyway, that's the more serious side of the issue. I want that to be out there for people to consider as they vote. And by God, please vote.
Well, you know, speaking about voting, I mean, this is kind of strange. Well, you're going to get in because you're unopposed. And we only have one other candidate who put her name in, which to me is a whole other story that we can either go into or not go into, whatever you're comfortable with. And even if she never set foot in the public to say vote for me, she's going to get elected even if she gets 5 votes. So, you know, that's the way that is, which I find very disappointing. I was hoping we would see at least a couple of people go in, you know, for that seat. Actually, I was hoping that, and I did email him on it, I was actually hoping that even though Ken Peterson had from the get-go pretty much indicated, you know, what he would stay for and be willing to stay for, I was kind of hoping that maybe he'd get worn down and stay on, because I think he was a really good council member, a very thoughtful council member, and, you know, brought a lot of good ideas and a lot of dignity and so on to his seat. But, you know, obviously he has to make his own decisions, and he has some plans in life for travel and things like that, so.
Yep, he's highly analytical, highly objective. And when Ken finally speaks, it's because he's done all his reflections, he's done all his homework, and every time he opens his mouth, he's worth listening to.
Oh, yeah.
But he's
very
also,
honorable guy,
you know, a man like that is in great demand, and Ken is in demand in many areas of life. He's got some very talented children in the Air Force.
Yes, I understand they're all officers, aren't they?
They're all officers, and one is a fighter pilot, and I think another is associated with high-level intelligence activities. But Ken travels a lot to see them. Yeah. He is also the one of the judges for a major air show. I think it's held every year out in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So Ken's a busy guy.
Yeah, he is a busy guy, yeah. But he's going to be missed because I think he did a really good job. You know, knowing that that was his plan, I was hoping we'd see some people, you know, come forward.
Step up.
Yeah, and, you know, who had ideas or who have followed, you know, the council, followed issues or whatever, and were willing to jump in. And I was very disappointed, you know, was it a week ago Friday when the list was made public? I was very disappointed that that wasn't the case.
Well, this may surprise you, Kathy, but I have found in 3 years that there are some people who don't agree with my views.
Oh, really?
And, you know,
that is a surprise. and you'd be surprised to know there are some that don't agree with me, too, you know?
Right, but you're
and
not
I think we just do a real good job about being right on most things, don't you?
Well, I know we are. I'm not sure about the rest of it.
Well, that's what I meant, yeah.
But, I mean, there's an example there about the council that is a good story for other people. You know, if you agree with me or not, it doesn't, I mean, if you agree with me, it doesn't matter whether you vote in a way, only because I'm one of 2 uncontested candidates. Yeah. So if you like the way I think, I'm going to be elected. Yeah. But you know what? If you're one of those few or many who disagree with positions I've taken, by not being a candidate yourself or getting somebody else to run, you don't have any choice. Those views that I reflect that you don't agree with will be around for 3 more years, and by God, you can't do anything about it right now because nobody signed up to run against me. And I vehemently object to that. I strongly object to that.
Well, I'm always of the theory that, you know, somebody doesn't have the right to grouse unless they're willing to step up and either open their mouths or do something. You know, anybody can be an armchair critic and just carry on and denounce everybody. But, you know, if you don't have the wherewithal once in a while to at the very least, give your opinion and back it up with why you have that opinion, then I think you just should keep quiet.
We have a lot of bright people. I mean, very bright people in Bedford, and they miss a great opportunity, they miss a great privilege, and they miss a lot of fun by choosing not to run for office on the town council. I mean, seriously. I hope maybe when it comes up next year, as some of the councilors may or may not run again next year,
well,
if anybody's interested. I think there are 2 more again next year. Yep. I hope, there are 2 more next year. Sure. And I hope people fill those slots out, truly.
Now, let me ask you something. Now, this is like totally speculative. I mean, and I'm not even throwing a suggestion out there, but this is just like one of those, you know, when I have nothing to do, I come up with type questions.
Here we go.
Say, for instance, Ms. Murphy decided that, you know, I mean, her name is going to be on the ballot, obviously, because I believe the ballots are already printed.
Yes,
but
they
say,
are.
for instance, she decided, I don't think I'm that interested after all. And, you know, doesn't want to be a council member. Well, I mean, even with a few votes, she would be a council member, so she would have to resign. In a case like that, what would happen? Would the council, would there have to be a special election called, or would the council be able to actually appoint somebody for a period of time?
The latter.
They'd be able to appoint? Now, interestingly, when that has happened before, which it did a couple times, we saw candidates come out. I mean, there were people contesting each other for that appointment.
Yes, Bill Jean, as a matter of fact, several years ago, was an appointee to the town council.
As was Ken.
As was Ken, and now...
And wasn't a long time ago, going back a few years, wasn't Bandazian?
I don't
But he
know.
had to, it seems, now maybe I have the name wrong, but it seems to me that he fulfilled somebody's term, and I can't remember if the guy
think that's
moved or
correct.
whatever.
I think that's
But when
correct.
he took it, they did put the if it was him. But if it wasn't him, the situation was still the same, though, that they appointed the person but said that the person had to agree that they would not put their name on the ballot, so that it didn't look like a situation where we're putting somebody on who's just going to, you know, then walk away with an election. And I believe it was him, and then a couple of years later he actually ran.
I think
But
that's
again,
correct.
it may not be Bandazian. I might be totally wrong that it was him. But
No, I
the
think
situation.
I think your memory's accurate on that point.
And yet each time that happened, there were people vying for it. I mean, when Ken was appointed, I think, weren't there two more?
Two more appointees?
Not two more applicants that you interviewed? I think there were at least three.
Oh, there were, yeah, I see your point now, yes.
Yeah.
There were at least three, that's correct.
Yet they don't run for office, though. That's the interesting thing.
That is
They'll run
correct.
for an appointment, but not for office, which kind of baffles me a little bit.
Well, I suspect it has to do with the elected office being a 3-year term and the appointed office being a 1-year term.
Well, that could be.
Jason Currier was an individual who accepted the 1-year appointment.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he didn't have any interest, and nobody put the onus on Jason.
No.
That he had to leave, but I think he has a young family.
He has a young family.
And he had a job that he traveled on, I guess, right?
He recognized the extraordinary amount of work involved on the council, as well as raise a young family, as well as business.
Yeah, he was having a hard time getting all the scheduling.
He was. He found it difficult to balance those things out, and Jason did a commendable job.
Yeah, he was.
as well.
Nice guy.
Really.
Yeah, very calm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and he would have made a good councilor had he stayed on.
He did. I mean, in the year Jason was in, he did an excellent job.
Yeah, I remember. And I think a couple of times he ran into, if my memory serves me correctly, he ran into a little opposition for some new ideas he had, if you remember back. I guess we won't get into names here on that, but I can remember watching a couple council meetings where he was very earnest and had put a lot of time into something and kind of got swatted down real fast. And, you know, I remember sitting there going, oh, you know, like that. Like, oh. Now, you know what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
You were there. You know what I'm talking about. But, yeah, and I would imagine that would have been frustrating for him because he did put the time and effort, into it.
He worked hard at what he did. Yes, ma'am.
He did.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't know. What's up? Any good gossip for me or any good stories? I mean, I told you could kind of go wherever you wanted with this show.
Well, I think one of the things I've learned about time on the council as a councilor is the time to speak is not, in retrospect, looking back the following 2 weeks, the time to open your mouth, if you've thought your position out or not sometimes it is appropriate to speak up and stop where the train of thought is going for the council and argue then and now. Bill entertains the input from various members of the council very well. One of the mistakes I think I made in some of the earlier council meetings was being too reflective on what I was hearing and deciding I would come back the following 2 weeks and maybe if we opened up that topic again, I would address it. That's not the way you should do it. I think it's important to speak your mind then and there when an issue comes up. I've learned that. I've learned the value of homework. Do not come unprepared. Mike Scanlon was a great teacher of that principle. Get your homework done. Don't come unprepared. And Mike was right on the mark. And I've also learned that people in the town of Bedford are not of one shade. And what I mean that philosophically. And you can learn that, you do learn that on the council, that somebody whose particular position you may vehemently disagree with, and you know this as well as I do, on one issue, completely changes, and you become a protagonist for that person rather than an antagonist when you mingle with them about some other issue. Politically, or for instance, Bill Greiner and I differed on one or two points early on, and I have since learned that I absolutely underestimated the value of the man to this community as a builder, as a fundraiser. In so many ways, I just really didn't see the complete man. And I think the council gives you that opportunity with people. You know, you and I were, as you said at the outset, it's entirely unreasonable to think that you and I would sit down together.
Yeah, we had a few scrabble situations.
Spend some time now after all of the controversial moments we spent together as well. You know, you learn to balance, and you find balance in life, even at my age.
And some people can't do that. You know, they hold their grudges. And we've seen situations like that here in Bedford, where, you know, 20 years after the fact, they still have not a good word to say about each other. They're still settling scores, you know.
Life's too short for that.
Well, that's what I think.
People are not black and white. They're not good or bad. They're a composite and a mixture.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And the council has been very good at providing me an adequate opportunity to understand and realize that lesson.
Do you think there's anything, you know, sitting as a councilor, is there anything that, you know, whether it was an expectation that didn't happen or anything, is there anything you found disappointing about it?
No, I might say, that, you know, maybe the trivia, the mundane, the unimportant. But I realized in retrospect that there weren't many things I dealt with over a 3-year period that in consequence could fairly have been deemed trivial, unimportant, or mundane. There were all significant issues, maybe less exciting, less sensual. It's, you know, some of the more controversial issues, such as the educational farm or the dog park or the TIF district or a few others over the years. But they're all, in balance, they all play to the well-being of the community and the town of Bedford.
Yeah, everything's intertwined somehow.
And then I've also, I mean, one of the things I learned, and I'll do a pitch for it right now, is that I think we have probably the barest number of people necessary to do the maximum work within this town. And we have some extraordinary people whose efforts as employees of the town is just excellent. They're not clock watchers. They are committed intellectually and emotionally to the well-being of this town, and not by virtue of the salary that they draw for their efforts. You know, I have had an opportunity to meet and work with many people like that on that side of the ledger, and I'm privileged to have had that opportunity.
Well, of course, you know, I share that with you when at least one, and I'm not to say not all situations, but one that I've been vocal about lately has been the police department, because I think they do an outstanding job, and I'd like to see them get some more staff that they badly need. And
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'd like to see them get more staff that they badly need. You heard me. Now you're just pulling my chain.
Well, you'd have an opportunity to make that point either through your show, or again at the budget session coming up in early March.
Know, there were a couple people who didn't like hearing that, and that's the way it is. Too bad. They're going to hear it, you know. Just like if you want to say something, you'll say it.
Amen.
You have to have that position, that if somebody doesn't want to hear it, doesn't mean you should get muzzled up.
Well, the council doesn't muzzle itself, though, either. When they had discussions about the candidates for the town manager position or the police chief position, I will say that there was a divergence of opinions. Some people preferred one over the other.
Yeah, well, that's natural.
But it ultimately all comes together. You know, so use the opportunities you have, you, Kathy, as well as the voters, to express your opinions, no matter how much some may say they are filled with dissension or discord. If you feel differently about something, by God, speak up and say it.
Well, I think the end result of both the searches are good. I think Brofonsky's doing a great job, and I think Jessie Levine is such a breath of fresh air in this town. And, you know, she's very centered, she's very balanced, but, you know, underneath that very calm, controlled exterior, I think there's a pit bull when she has to go into pit bull frame of mind.
Bedford is very fortunate in the hiring of John Brofonsky out of the
absolutely.
DEA,
Yep.
as well as the hiring of Jessie. I think we have, the town is fortunate to have two first-class people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Or it has two more first-class people.
I
Let's
agree.
put it
I
that
think
way.
they both are doing a really good job. I hope both of them stay with us a long time. If everybody can get along, maybe they will. Although I'm sure there were a couple times that each of them had to look in the mirror and go, what have I gotten myself into? You know.
Well, I hope that's probably, no, I guess that is true. No doubt it is, but, you know, they get up each morning and start over anew.
Yeah,
You
well,
can't
they're
ask for
professionals.
much more than that, right?
They're professionals. You know, they're not going to wither and, you know, get all bent out of shape because they get some criticism or a little flack or whatever. They're both professionals.
So you asked about reflections on the council.
Yes.
I think I would have to say, honestly, I feel I have come out the winner for the opportunity to serve on the council. I truly believe it is a privilege to be on the council and to work for the people of Bedford. And I know there have got to be some people smarter than me sitting out there saying, are you crazy? You know, you make $1,500 a year, and you might put 25 hours in unless you're the chair of the council, and you might put 40 hours in. Why is that worth it? Believe me, it's worth it. Because the achievements you are able to be a part of are worth your time, your energies, your efforts. They truly are. We look at the TIF, that is going to have a substantial influence on this community, and that comes about through the efforts of the council. There are lots of things the council has a strong hand in influencing and bringing forth. You know, I'll make the pitch again. Maybe next year, those of you who have a skill set can bring that to the town of Bedford and run for office one way or the other. Or, failing that, there are lots of volunteer positions in this town that you can sign up for in the next 3 weeks where the community can use your help. I would hope you consider doing that as well.
If I were to say to you, now that you've been on 3 years, what was the most fun, enjoyable, or satisfying issue that you got to work on personally? I mean, I'm not talking now the broad sense of the town, but just one that you'd look back and say, hey, I really liked working on that one.
I suspect it might have been the issue of finding a new town manager.
Yeah?
Russ Marcoux was a very unique man. And he was the only town manager that most of the people on the council, or most of the people who work here in Bedford, have ever had any familiarity with.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But you learn when you review the resumes, and the way they were reviewed with me was Bill Dermody and I sat down in the library one afternoon and went through all the resumes together. We would tape the sessions. I would play them back at home and begin to make my judgments on the qualities of several of all the candidates. And you saw such complete differences in the ways people approached their job as a town manager or a town administrator, where they placed their priorities. And you learned that we had a pretty good town manager in Russ, and that it didn't mean that we had to find somebody who replicated identically the nature of the man Russ. We could branch out and, you know, find someone totally different in many ways, whose skill sets were different, whose focus would clearly be different. And I think we did that with Jesse. But I mean, it was such a broadening educational experience, and so privileged it was for 7 councilors to have the opportunity to choose somebody that would make such a huge difference in this town. I mean, that truly was fun in many ways.
Yeah, I would think it would have been.
It was.
Yeah, I would think so.
Maybe not the answer you might have been expecting,
No,
but I think...
no. I mean, everybody has, you know, I think everybody has a pet issue or something that they just found to be very satisfying. I mean, not all issues are exciting. Some of them are going to be kind of a yawn, and you'd think, oh, well, I'd be glad this one's over. You know, but...
What kind of an issue did you say?
A yawn.
No, I think you said an issue. What kind of an issue?
I don't know, what did I say?
Oh, I think you said a pet issue.
Oh, a pet, well, yeah, I think everybody has something that would be a pet issue. In your case, I think it would be the woof woof, the dog park. Yeah, you had me there for a minute.
You set me up pretty well.
Yeah, I did.
Absolutely.
I did. I tried to, yeah, but you definitely had me there for a minute. All right, now conversely...
Now, wait. Just let me...
all right. You want to get a pitch in for that? Go ahead.
I want to get a pitch in for the pet issue.
Absolutely, because that's not just set yet, and we're going to be voting on it at the polls.
We are absolutely going to be voting on that for the polls.
Yeah.
And as council members take positions and try to persuade the general public to vote yes or no on something, like we did for the TIF district, like we did for the road bond, I think it's appropriate to say on this issue, I would urge all of you to recognize that the potential dog park paid for in its construction and paid for in the maintenance of said park by this third-party organization. I would urge you to say yes to a dog park, and I'll come back on that just for a moment if I may.
Absolutely.
And to say yes to what would be the second choice, B, that is, choose to have the dog park funded by a third-party organization that would pay for its construction and its maintenance. And avoid the issue 3. Issue 3, or question, first question, do you want a dog park, yes or no? Vote yes. Do you want item A, where the town pays for it? Item B, where a third-party organization pays for it? Or do you want item C, where a lease is signed by a third-party organization and they agree to take on legal responsibility as well as fiscal responsibility? Avoid that like the plague, because if you are for a dog park, C finally means only one thing. It means C, no dog park. Because there is not now, nor in my judgment will there ever be, a third-party organization willing to sign a lease and represent the town that way on a dog park because of the legal responsibility. If you do vote for the third and final box, you are guaranteed 2 things. You are guaranteed that in your lifetime there will never be a dog park. And you are further guaranteed that in the lifetime of your grandchildren's grandchildren, there will never be a dog park. So in a quick close, if you're interested, I mean, A, get out and vote. B, if you're interested in a dog park, or you don't want a dog park, you know, vote yes, it's on the ballot. Just say yes or no. And if you're going to check off one of the 3 boxes, once you said you are for a dog park, then check the middle box, B. Now, why you should be for a dog park, whether you've got an animal or not, and there are 8,000 households in Bedford, and approximately 3,700 of those have dogs, 1 or more. So almost half the population of Bedford's homes is a place where a pet resides. So it is to the interest of a lot of people. But it's an investment being made in the town by an independent third party for the benefit of the town. It is, by any standard, it's an asset. And an asset without any cost to the town. So like I had said the other night, if you don't want this, you gotta be crazy. I think that covers my pet projects.
You know, honest to God, you know how to tell it like it is when you want to. There's no question about that.
Thank you.
Well, you know, we are down to just a little over 2 minutes, and I was going to ask you, conversely, what issue you wish you had never had to deal with and would go away fast. But you know what? As I said, I can only give you about 2 more minutes, really, absolutely 2 minutes, and then I'm going to pinch around. I want you to close whatever way you want to. I want you to, you know, to talk right to the people of Bedford and tell them whatever you want them to hear.
Okay,
Go for it.
For me, for the next 2 years, 3 years, and I think for several of the members of the council, the issue of the widening transportation is a major issue, and this town council, as much as it possibly can, I believe, will stay focused on the widening of 101. I want you to know that. I want you to know that we believe in that, and I want you to know that there are energies being applied by other council members in that direction. Number two, I think a priority, very important to me, is the relationship that the town council has with the state representatives and the senators. These people represent something, and in my judgment, they represent the town of Bedford. So I am hoping that collectively the town council and the state representatives can meet and determine the priorities for both organizations, collectively and separately, get together more than just once a year. I think the two organizations have a great deal in common and have a great deal of common goals. And I think we should I hope we can stay very focused on that.
Perfect. Now you get the arm pinch.
Okay, those are my 2 minutes. Thank you,
Fantastic. Kathy. I so enjoyed having you here today. I want to shake your hand. You were a lot of fun to have.
Folks?
Yeah, look at it good. I'd like to have you back. You know, after you come back from your trip and, you know, when you're ready to take on the council business again or whatever, I'd like to have you back. Because I have a feeling as I said, two old Irishmen, we can talk forever.
Be a pleasure.
Will you come back?
I will come back.
All right. I think it was fun. I think people will enjoy hearing you.
Thank you.
Well, anybody who watches the council meetings knows that Jim has absolutely no trouble giving his opinion. And he usually gives it very eloquently and fully as well. And I think you heard him today do kind of the same things. And this is what we love on this show. I mean, absolutely. One of my goals is to get people on who aren't afraid to tell it like it is. And if we could ever point to anybody in Bedford who's not afraid to tell it like it is, I think Jim Scanlon would be right at the top of the list. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Come back next time and you start telling it like it is if you're not doing it already. So till next time, bye-bye.